So recently I asked my audience to ask me questions for a Q&A video, and I actually got a whole lot of questions that were all around the same topic, so I decided to make a whole video just answering this one. And all of those people seemed really interested in learning about what inspires me and what my brainstorming process is like. So in this video I'm going to give you some tips on getting inspired, and hopefully it will be helpful to you. I definitely know that I've gone through periods of my life where I've struggled to feel inspired for something that I was working on. So if you've ever felt that way, give me a thumbs up, and while you're there, leave me a comment telling me all about what it is that you need inspiration for, whether it's writing music or making crafts or drawing or doing your homework. I'd really love to know what all of you are working on. So my first tip for getting inspired is to fill your most frequently used online spaces with people who inspire you. So if you're always scrolling through Instagram, for example, it's a really good idea to follow all sorts of people in your field or who do things that you really love, because if you're just looking through that in your spare time and you come away from that feeling happier, more creative, more inspired, it wasn't a waste of time in that situation. It actually was really very helpful. So I follow all kinds of Etsy shops and makers and artists and YouTubers who inspire me, and so whenever I scroll through my Instagram feed, I come away from that wanting to make a video or make something or draw something, and at the very least I feel happier because those things make me feel much better than the things going on in my Facebook feed. If you're finding that the people you are following aren't inspiring you anymore, I would recommend taking some time and just searching for things you love and looking and seeing what people are doing. Instagram is particularly helpful for this because if you follow somebody new, they suggest people who are similar, and you can kind of fall down the creative rabbit hole and just follow a ton of people who make things that you like. So if you ever get bored of what you're seeing in your Instagram feed, you can go and refresh it. It'll kind of help you get excited all over again if you're seeing what some new people are doing with the same ideas that you love. Another tip that I have for you is to get out of the house and go to a place that inspires you. Whether that's a beautiful park near you, because nature can inspire you and you can get fresh air and clear your mind. For me, it's craft fairs and art sales and things like that, where I can get out and walk around and talk to people and see what they're making in person. Just the whole experience makes me want to create, not because I get ideas or because I want to copy somebody, but because I see what they're doing, I see how it affects people, and it makes me think of all the things I could make that I would be really great at making that could make me feel the same way. So just the fact that I've gotten a change of scenery often helps, especially if I'm feeling really stuck. And also it kind of reminds me why I do what I do in the first place, because when it gets difficult or when nobody's buying anything I'm making, I can remember that it makes somebody happy. If it makes somebody feel the way I feel when I look at someone else's art, it's worth doing. Another example of this is whenever I go to an event like VidCon and I talk to a whole bunch of YouTubers and I see everybody out filming everywhere, it makes me want to come home and make videos. So going to an event like that is particularly valuable to me because something that maybe I got a little bored of or maybe I ran out of ideas for is suddenly right back up in my mind again, and I'm filled with enthusiasm for it, and that kind of experience can be really helpful for getting inspired and staying inspired. So as far as brainstorming goes, this is something that I've worked really hard to develop over the years, and so I kind of have a system. You should definitely do whatever works for you, but this is the thing that has kind of helped me. And for me, I get inspiration all over the place, and usually, especially now, it's not at a time or in a place where I can sit down and actually create that thing immediately. So what I've learned to do is that when I get an idea, I write it down, because the next time I actually have time to do something, I can go and look at the list of things I had written down and decide what I'm most excited about and work on that. So the way that I make sure that I'm not gonna forget any of the things that I came up with is to have, first of all, digital places that I can go and type in the idea. So places that I like to do this, I use Evernote on my cell phone and on my laptop. And that's a really good place to jot down any ideas for song lyrics, any little blurbs or lines that I want to put into a YouTube video, or even just a list of ideas for new plushies. Another place that I like to keep track of my ideas is Trello. Trello is a really good app that I actually use to organize all sorts of things with my work. And I have kind of a brain dump section of my Trello board where it's just a list of a ton of video ideas. And the really great thing about the Trello cards is that if I decide that I want to produce any of those ideas, I can drag it into a new column with just my current ideas and the things that I'm seriously going to be working on soon. And that allows me to have like a place where I can keep everything that I've collected for that particular idea. There are plenty of apps like this, whether they're productivity related like Trello, or they're just kind of a note-taking app where you can keep everything in one place like Evernote. But the good thing about having it be digital is that I usually have my phone on me. Sometimes I'm at my laptop, but they all kind of coordinate and sync. And no matter where I am, I can write that thing down and I know I'm not gonna lose a little piece of paper. I do keep lots of little notebooks and sketchbooks around because sometimes I just need pencil and paper and sometimes I want to draw, and it can be really helpful to have access to that wherever I am. So I have that up by my bed, so if I wake up in the morning and I have ideas, I can write that down there. I also have that in my studio here in case I come up with anything while I'm working, and I also have it downstairs in the living room in a drawer right next to our couch, so that if I'm sitting down there hanging out with my baby and I get an idea, there is a notebook right there for me. So find kind of the places where you get the most inspired and leave things where you can write those down, because you don't know when that idea is gonna leave your head. You could be going into the next room to get a notebook, and then before you know it, you've forgotten it, you've moved on, you're in a different room, you don't know what your idea was. And one of the most frustrating things about getting inspired is that if you lose that inspiration and you hadn't written down your idea, you might not get it back. So that's probably the most important thing that I can tell you, is that if you get an idea, hold on to it until you have a chance to actually see it come to fruition. So obviously, if you have a big list of ideas that you've collected over time and you've done all your favorite ones and there are still some left over, there may be a point where you aren't coming up with any more ideas, and that is when that list becomes really valuable, because you don't have anything currently floating around in your head and you can go and remind yourself of something you came up with a long time ago and never got a chance to do. You might get more excited about it again if you have a chance to think about it from a new perspective in your life. So another tip that I have, and this is something that I've been trying to work on lately, is to be okay with imperfection. If you start working on something and you don't like where it's headed and you give up on it right away, that is the best way to kill inspiration. That makes it so then you think that idea was not working and you're just not gonna try it again. I find that I need to remind myself that an idea that isn't turning out the way I want it to just needs more work. It's just not ready yet. And so it may need a new melody if it's a song I was writing that I didn't like, or there's a few sections of lyrics that just need to be totally replaced. It doesn't mean that the whole project needs to be scrapped and it's not working out. It means that I just need to make it better. And maybe that means putting it aside and taking some time and looking at it again later with fresh eyes. But I think it's really important to not get down about things that aren't turning out as great as you think they could be, because you just need to give it more of a chance and maybe try it from another angle. I sort of find that I lose the motivation to work on things if I don't stay positive in those kinds of creative spaces. And this last tip works for some people. It works for me sometimes, and I would love to live in a world where I could actually do this, but I just don't have as much time as I used to. A lot of people work really well under a deadline, that if they set a challenge for themselves, like I'm going to write a song every week for an entire month, I find that if I put off things because I'm not quite inspired enough for them, I will never do them. But if I have a deadline, I can kind of create wonderfully amazing things that I didn't really expect to come out of me. And something about that deadline, something about the pressure and the challenge of getting something done in time actually kind of helps me find the inspiration. I'm kind of having to force it at that point, but that's not the worst thing in the world. I'm kind of always learning, always getting new ideas, and always trying to figure out the best way to deal with them. So I would love to hear about what inspires you. What are your tips for getting and staying inspired? And how does your brainstorming process work? Does it look like mine, or is it completely different? I'm so excited to hear all about it in the comments. And if you want to be a part of my weird and wonderful little online family, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring that little notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.